Guess what? I sent you the wrong track. Hang on a second.
Okay. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Hurdy Gurdy Café, an hour of interviews, music, and camaraderie. I'm Ryan, and I'll be your host along this crazy adventure through the land of the wheel fiddle. So strap in, and let's see what's cranking in the Hurdy Gurdy community today.
Hello.
Hello, Sergio.
How you doing, Brian? How you doing?
How are you?
Ryan, everybody.
Yeah, Brian and Ryan.
Yes, this is your show.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the Hurdy Gurdy Cafe podcast. We're here in season 2, and we have a wonderful guest today, Brian McCoy. Hello, Brian McCoy.
Hi.
Great to see you. And as always, we have Sergio with us. Sergio.
Yes, hello.
Great to see you. Before we get into our discussion with Brian, Brian has a few tracks that he wanted to feature. And this first track is called Tears No More by Matthias Laubner. So we're going to have a listen to that, and then we'll be back with Brian, and we'll have a little chat. So let's listen. right, that was Tears No More by Matthias Laubner, and this was Brian's first pick. So Brian, why did you pick this track? Tell us about it.
Well, I picked this track because it's one of my Matthias, just generally speaking, as a hurdy-gurdy player, was one of the first that I ever saw. Especially when I started playing, he had a bunch of videos up online already. But then listening to this track, it was something that wasn't like so like French traditional. And there was a lot of some really amazing like ideas that he used in this album. It was one of the first albums also that was hurdy-gurdy solo without it sounding like super duper like hyper traditional as well. And also just like the tonality of his hurdy-gurdy in that track is like, it's awesome. You just get like smacked in the face with this like warm, rich Wolfgang tone, you know, just like that.
Yes,
big old,
that's it.
Yeah. And for me, it was just sweet. Like it was also an introduction to hearing, because at that point I was listening to like Nigel Eaton and some of these other players, but I never really listened to a hurdy-gurdy that sounded quite like Matthias Loibner at that point. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So it does. Yes.
Yeah, and also like he just had some other ideas. And for me, Matthias Loibner is for me at least, is like the most emotionally musical player. So for me, when you listen for listening to him, there's a lot of push and pull with notes, and how he even approaches how he plays some of his like melodies. He doesn't use the traditional like French trad like chops. So it was really also listening to him was like hearing just a different way of playing the hurdy-gurdy in kind of more of like it wasn't classical, but it was just like a different way. It wasn't trad. It's still trad, but
yeah.
And plus just this melody in this tune, I just like love so much.
Yeah, cool. Well, Sergio, I've been trying to think about how to introduce Brian. I've interacted with him a good bit through the hurdy-gurdy community, and I've heard his insane right hand playing.
Of course, Brian, for everybody, is the monster of right hand. Everybody knows you because of that.
Yeah.
And of course, electronics, pedals, we all love that. Like new age, some little bits of jazz.
Yeah. So what?
All that.
What is it that you love most about the hurdy-gurdy here, Brian? Is it the monster buzzing that you do, or all the wonderful stuff you can do with the pedals? What drew you to the hurdy-gurdy?
Wow, what drew me to the hurdy-gurdy? That is
big question.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you the story of like how I found the hurdy-gurdy.
Sure.
Please do it.
Let's do it. All right. So if you go back to 2009, it was the winter of 2009.
You were like 8 years old.
I was 8 years old, just a babe. And I just completed my first year of college, and it was a mess. I had put on 20 pounds. I basically just drank my way through college. Basically almost failed out. Like I failed out real bad, and almost did. And my GPA was so bad that I couldn't even pledge into a fraternity. So it was like, but anyways, this is like winter break. So this was like after this semester of just completely like boozing and having these bizarre experiences and, having a good time as well. And I remember just sitting at home playing. I had a bag of Easter candy. It was like, so I would just be like, I was kind of in this weird depression as well. So I was playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, like not the whole time, but just like there. And then I remember seeing on my mom's TV, on the TV of the house, because that's where I lived, this Lorena McKinnon DVD.
Oh.
And I was a big fan of Lorena to begin with. Like we had always listened to Lorena McKinnon, so like Mummer's Dance and all that stuff. And I had listened to some of her live albums, but then this was like the first time I was like, well, let's just listen to let's watch this live album. What do I have to lose here? And so I popped this old boy in, and this was the what is it? It was like when she actually played in like Spain. It was like it was the concert she filmed in like southern Spain.
Yes.
And it was like beautiful. And she, and this was the concert where she was playing with Nigel Eaton. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the man. But I remember just like watching the DVD and just thinking casually, like looking at this guy in the corner, and I was like, what is this guy playing? And I just remember just keeping the image in my head and not really thinking too much about it. Just being like, that's weird. Like, how does the air come out of it? Like, what is this?
Oh, yes.
It's like really, he was also like, he wasn't doing anything too difficult or too like crazy. So it's just weird to see some guy like in the corner cranking and playing. And so I was just kind of like, well, that's weird. But I remember how do I remember this? But I just remember like the movement of how he was playing and just this figure. And I didn't realize he was British. I thought he was like from a different part of like, this was some sort of like archaic, Eastern European instrument that she brought in, but boy, was I wrong. Well, I was like half right. I mean, it is sort of Eastern European, but he wasn't. So let's fast forward another 6 months after that, and maybe 7, and I switched colleges, and I took a world music class, and because at that point I'm really into like world music, still am, world music of the I don't know.
What were you playing at that time?
I wasn't playing much.
Like guitar or
actually I was actually like a pretty good drum set player.
Okay.
And I basically have sang my entire life. Like I've been in like musicals and all that stuff. But I actually was like not studied. Like I didn't study jazz with drums, but I definitely like played drums a lot. Like I wasn't in bands. I went all through high school, not all through elementary. I can't remember when I started drums, but at that point I was playing drums for almost 9 years or so.
Okay.
Now we understand the rhythm.
Yeah.
Of course.
There is some I can really explain, like there is some method behind what I'm doing. Like it isn't just like me trying to like show off. There is some like reason why I'm doing what I'm doing as well. So at Kent, I took a world music class, and the day I remember, I remember the day we learned about the hurdy gurdy, but it wasn't the it was a hurdy gurdy, but it was a poorly played Hungarian hurdy gurdy, and we were learning it just in Hungary, like as a Hungarian instrument. We weren't learning it in any of the tradition in France, even in Spain, or even in like some of the like Germany, blah blah blah. It was just like, no, this is Hungarian. And then I remember after that class finished, I had like my iPod, and I put on like the track that I saw Nigel Eaton like do a hurdy gurdy solo on, and I was like, oh dang, I got to get one of these hurdy gurdies. Like I gotta get one of these things, like, because it was just so cool. And at that point I was dabbling with guitar, but that was kind of, I was more or less into like harvesting like music and stuff than anything else. So then I found it and then I got my first one in the winter of 2009, which it kind of came quick. It only came, and it was an Altarwind. Whoop, whoop. And let me tell you, in 2009, Altarwinds were scary. I mean, they were don't get me wrong, like
we are opening a can of worms here.
Yeah, but to defend Altarwind, like there was some. Now that I look back at that situation, I have to kind of, I can't say thank them, but without them, I wouldn't have then found Hurdy Gurdy Crafters, which was only 4 hours from my house, which is sweet. Yeah. So like that's why another reason why I was kind of lucky in my, like, I wasn't completely isolated. I could just get in my car and just go north. And I was at Mel Dory's house. Mm-hmm. And so grace to this instrument, I was able to meet Mel Dory's. So in the end, like, I can't be so mad at like Altarwind. I just like, I can't be like, so I have to kind of like weigh my cards a little bit better and be like, well, because of them, you found this. And then it's like, okay, well, fair enough.
Yeah, but you really wanted to play though. I mean, based on how you play, like, yeah. I think the difference is like, I mean, I also started in Altarwind, and of course, not too long after, I was like, I also contacted Mel Dory's, and I thought to myself, you know, we need to do something a little different here. But I wanted to play. You really want to do it. But if people get an instrument that's not going to work for them, they're going to get it and say, this doesn't work. It sounds not so good. And then they just quit, which is kind of a...
You're right, Ryan. Yes, I get the point.
And one of the, and the more and more I'm trying to, especially looking at the landscape of what, and especially this boom of people coming, like, and that's another reason why I'm like dabbling with this Gallopin, is because I'm trying to like problem solve, like I'm trying to problem solve these things. So like if people have questions, it's like, maybe we can salvage this, maybe we can't. But it's like, I think for me, like a beginning hurdy-gurdy should be almost like overbuilt, almost overly like precise. Like it should almost just be like a brick, but everything works. Right. And so then like that's, and 3 strings, like just, and it should be like, and then, I don't know, a reasonable price. Mm-hmm. But then like, I don't know, because like for me, now that I'm where I'm at, like 10 years of playing, I can grab these like instruments that like people like, these instruments are gross. And I'm just like, well, let's bring it here. Let's see what we can do with it, you know? Mm-hmm. And I can get something out of them. But the problem is, it's like if these instruments, like that's the problem, is like people who don't know what they're doing and want to just like leap in, you know, they don't have these instruments that are going to help them, you know, and that's exactly the biggest problem that I have. And it's, and so for me, I don't want to shame people. Like the internet's all into like shaming and blah, blah, blah. It's like now at this point, I'm kind of like, oh crap. All right. So let's see what we can do with this instrument. This is what you need to fix to get it to work, kind of thing.
Have you found that you can get it to work? Have you got one yet? Yeah.
I literally spent like 3 days. Like I've re-shimmed all the keys and like repositioned.
You finally got one. Oh,
yeah. You want me to go get it?
Yes, please bring it.
All right, hang on.
All right.
Like, give me 2 seconds. Yeah.
Wow, Ryan. Look at that crank. Yeah, baby.
But what I did, this is in like me trying to fix it. So like there's no key box on it. I've like repositioned the tangents 2 different times. So there's a bunch of holes in the keys. There's only one set of tuners right now because what I had to do, to be honest, Gallopin Gurdys are quite efficiently built. However, they're only about 50% built. But just the amount of work, you know, that the wheel wasn't so set up. I mean, it is the first time I've ever managed a wooden crank, which is hilarious.
No, and the drawer knob is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Let me tell you. But so, and then these things, because my goal was to eliminate the key clack on this thing, and also to see if I can vibrato with it. And that's been, because also I have to say that I'm pretty garbage at like hurdy-gurdy setup, like just still, like there are cats that have been playing for like 2 years and they've rebuilt their hurdy-gurdies already. And I'm just like, I should probably learn how to do this rather than be like, hello, Mr. Lucia, can you help me please? Like, they're like, Brian, you've been playing for 10 years. Come on now. You know, like, they're like, it's broken. It's like, dude, you just need to do this. I'm like, I don't know. So this is just kind of like, basically, if you look at like if you look at like hurdy-gurdies, like Legos, this is like the Duplo of hurdy-gurdies. So this is like a big old Duplo Gurdy. So it's just kind of like, okay, well, the pieces are huge and it's like kind of fun to fix. And I've spent so much time fixing it. My God, like 3 years or 3 days of, but it's okay. It sounds pretty rough though. Do you want me to play it?
Yeah, yes, let's hear something.
Do it.
You want to hear this whole Gallopin? Sorry, I only have
put it through your octave pedal and
yeah, I wish. I want to.
Whammy.
Yeah, you're running pedal, right?
There we go. Yeah. Or like reverb. Unfortunately, there's no electronics on it. That's step 2. I'm out.
Hey.
Fancy.
It makes a melody. That's good.
It works.
Yeah.
It's diatonic. But like, yeah, you can be like, yeah, like, what is this, like fiddling? Is this what this is called? Like,
oh. It does the vibrato.
yeah,
well,
we made it do vibrato. Did it.
When I go back and edit this, I'll put some reverb on it.
I'm out.
Fancy.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, huh? Yeah, definitely not a pleasant instrument. But it works.
So yes, maybe you don't get Gallopin Gurdys.
No, I mean, at the end of all this, like, just don't buy them. Like, just don't. Like, don't. Like, I just, like, for me, I'm almost like, if someone, like, that's at the beginning, is like, just don't buy them. But, oh, you did? Okay, well, let's see what we can do, kind of thing. Because, for me, I tried to do, like, when I bought this from the guy that I bought it from, I also was trying to do, like, good Gurdy karma. So, like, I bought it for the price he paid for it and the shipping, and then I paid for shipping on top of that. And it just was like, because for me, one of the things I was so butthurt about was, like, with my first instrument, I remember working so hard, like with my job, getting all these extra hours, doing all this crap, asking my family for this, for all this stuff, all this money, sorry. And like, then getting this instrument, and it's like, crap, it doesn't even do anything. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
So for me, it's a little, I don't know. I can understand the frustration as well when just don't buy it.
Yeah.
That's all. And it's, yeah. What do you have there? Is it?
Get one of these.
Yes.
Yeah. Buy a Nerdy Gurdy.
Exactly.
That's what I would like to get one of those. Now that I've dabbled with this thing, I'm like, maybe I should try it.
It's great. I mean, I think I've got, well, I don't know if you can see it. I've got one right up
Ryan
there.
Ryan is the king of Nerdy Gurdies now.
I'm not the king. I'm just, I found
you make them sound fantastic, Ryan. It's a fact.
I appreciate you telling me that, because I don't always think that, but I do think that, when I compare it to my first Hurdy Gurdy, which was the Altarwind, I think to myself, for $350 for parts or whatever, this thing sounds amazing. I mean, but it's set up. I mean, there's a fellow on the Hurdy Gurdy Café who's making wheels out of, I think, MDF. It's a different kind of material. And he sent one to me. It's on there, and that's not fixed up.
It's on mine.
Yeah. But it doesn't, I tried to tell him, I said, it's not going to fix a poor setup.
Yeah.
No, of course. But it happens on all the Gurdies. So,
right.
Poor setup. Even on the like Laubner.
Right.
Yeah.
But I am interested, Brian, you mentioned that it's 10 years in and you still don't really know how to try to work on or set up your instrument. That makes me feel a little bit better because I'm only a couple years in, but I've got a decent instrument, and I'm cringing because I'm thinking to myself, I really need to sit down with Sergio and have him show me what the hell I'm doing wrong here. So my shame has prevented me from doing that.
Oh man. I mean, like there's also like a point where you just have to like do it. Yeah. I remember because I was sort of quiet about because I know like who to talk to, I don't have to go to like Hurdy Gurdy community and be like, hello, Hurdy Gurdy community. My name is so-and-so. And I need help right now. You know, I was like, hey, Johannes, how do you tune this? And then I was like, hey, Wolfgang, how do you normally set up your keyboards? And I was like, hey, Herman, how do you normally set up one of these things? Because I was just kind of like in the corners being like, and then I was like, hey, Scott Marshall, what are you doing over here with your, and you know, so it wasn't like I was like, help me, internet, help. I was just kind of like, so, and then like, and no one saw me like, and I wasn't like posting like every single moment of my progress, you know, like, oh my God, guys, I took a tangent off, you know, because, you know, like I wasn't doing
sometimes,
that either. Yeah. You know, because there's some like basic things I know how to do, but some of this hardcore stuff, like I'm still pretty bad at. And also,
what's a hardcore thing?
Oh, I don't know. Like for me, maybe hardcore could be judged as soon as I say hardcore now, but we might as well put it out in the open. I don't know. Like even like for me, setting up my keyboard with like a system, like that was like intense for me. Like, cause people are like, well, that's like day one, and I'm like. I just like fight my keyboards and make them sound good. I'm like, oh, this touch is wrong. I'm like, well, I just have to touch it like this and it works. Like, but I didn't have any like control. It also, I didn't have like the control of getting into like the keyboard and setting it up how I wanted it, or even what I thought I wanted it.
Right.
And I was kind of like, oh, okay, this changes things a lot. Like, how just kind of learning, like even just going in like with each tangent, or because I was pretty good with like what was it, like the length and stuff, or just like raising and lowering the bridge. That was about all I could do. It was like, if it sounds like shit, let me just deep. Got it. Oh no, wait. Okay, bump. No, okay, cool. Up, it needs shimmed. Ding, poom. Done. Like, but I wasn't like, oh man, I need to get this G key in tune. I was just kind of like, I mean, I did it like once or twice, and I was like,
yeah.
But so the other time it was a little bit more intense. Like. It's like it took me a week of me just like swearing at an instrument, like this is the worst thing ever. Like, and it was just
I do it a lot. I always say your mother was a coffee grinder. I tell that to all of my gurdies.
But the next track we're going to listen to, this is make sure I've got it right. Cosmic Drone, and is the name Cosmic Drone and the band Califat, or is it Califat?
No,
and the band
sorry, it's the band is called Cosmic Drone and the song is Califat.
Excellent. All right, well, let's have a listen.
Califat.
So that was or the band was Cosmic Drone, and the track was Califat. What can you tell us about that track, Brian?
Well, first of all, we have to talk about who the hurdy-gurdy player is in this track.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that is Seaphone Durand. And he is kind of this mega player that nobody talks about. I mean, people talk, if you know hurdy-gurdies, you talk about him and you're like, oh, where did he go? Mm-hmm. But it's just like a sweet album too. Like this album, and it was great because I remember I was at Chateau d'Ars, and I remember because he's really good friends with a luthier that's building a hurdy-gurdy for me. But I forgot his name, Giovanni, oh crap, I'm going to be like a total chav. But anyways, he was, and I have this habit of just, when I see a hurdy-gurdy player that I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's you. Like, I still like a little fanboy, like, hey, hi. And I remember meeting Seaphone Durand, and I was like, oh man, it's really, really nice to meet you. You know, finally, after seeing you. But I had no idea what Cosmic Drone was. I just knew he was like a really like a badass player. And so what was so nice about him, gosh, I hope I didn't give away that CD. Anyways, what was so nice about him is that he like walked away. He goes, do you have my CD? And I was like, no. And he goes, okay, hang on a second. And so he like walks away, and he comes back and he gives me like Cosmic Drone, this album.
Wow.
And so, yeah, a fun little story there. And I remember listening to this album, and I was like, holy crap, this thing is sweet, because it's an album that has a full band. And the hurdy-gurdies have like, and it came out, the thing that's crazy is that the thing came out in 2003. So if you think about that, it's like, whoa, like, and it's because it was hurdy-gurdy with effects, hurdy-gurdy distorted, hurdy-gurdy everything. He was using a Syrah. And what's nice is he's using a full band playing the hurdy-gurdy with the chien, and everything works. Yeah. It's not just like, oh, you know, we're just going to use, like, I see so much now, and actually the track that you're going to play from me actually has no chien in it, so I'm going to completely sound like a hypocrite. But I got to play some of my stuff. Well, kind of. So it's a really cool instance that there's the use of chien in like a full band setting with a full blown drum set as well, mind you. Not even just like, oh, I'm going to remove the hi-hat and the chien's going to take the place. No, like it's still like chien is with the hi-hat as well, with the drum, with the whole drum, full blown band. I think there's guitar. I don't know, but yeah, it's a cool album. Yeah. And a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh, it's kind of corny, this album. But
just like, because of all the effects, or?
Well, it's also kind of this bizarre, like jazz kind of thing. But most hurdy-gurdy players like love it because it's just like, it's awesome. Like if you look at what Seaphone does as a hurdy-gurdy player, it's sweet. Like, it's like, we haven't seen an album like this since then, to be honest. And I don't mean to be like, this is the greatest album ever. I'm just saying, like, we haven't really seen anything like this since like 2003. Really, like this. And it's something so clear as well. Like the hurdy-gurdy is just like, bam, hurdy-gurdy plus band, and it works. So it's cool. Like, check it out. Like, that's like, it's such an important album.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your effects, gear, rack, pedal situation thing.
Yeah. We got 10 minutes to do this. No, actually,
we've got some time.
Okay. So with me, I am all about effects and stuff like that. And I think I used them a little too much in the beginning. So I have to caution those, because I don't want, I have to just make sure I steer people in the direction. So don't use too many effects in the beginning, because I was just like, hurdy-gurdy, kind of know what I'm doing, plug it in kind of thing. Like, I was just like, but for me, I really enjoyed pedals. And I think it was because I love guitars, I love, like, at this point in my life, I love guitar playing. I love just the culture behind guitars as well. Like, but I don't know. And also I was a big fan of guitarists, but I didn't want to play guitar, but I wanted to do what they did with effects with the hurdy-gurdy. Mm-hmm. So like for me, like, I know this is a funny guitar player say, but for me, like, I loved the edge because like from you too. Yeah. Because I mean, it's just like, he figured out how to make a 4-piece band sound like there was like way more space. And for me, I'm also a big fan of New Age. So this guy here, Andreas Wallenweide, he's this Swiss harp player. And he was like, honestly, it's like groovy New Age music and it's sweet. But he was using a lot of like spatial effects. And I loved just in the beginning, like reverbs and stuff, and making hurdy-gurdies go into like a bigger space. And also spiritually speaking, I was in this bizarre point where I was thinking all my music needed to be in like a dome, like a big dome thing. And then like what I was playing were like colors moving through the space. So mind you, you can tell what kind of interesting substances I was taking at that point as well. But like, so there was also this period of me kind of like thinking about hurdy-gurdies and being like, because hurdy-gurdies became almost like a controller as well. And how do I, you know, and I enjoyed using the hurdy-gurdy, but then also seeing how the effect worked. So it was like you kind of like you'd fling out a note and then you'd just be like, okay, watch where it goes. And it goes whoop, or it just does its thing. And I was interested in making music like that as well. And I was always interested in trying effect pedals with like hurdy-gurdies and seeing how it worked and all this stuff. And, you know, I mean, I have to kind of give like shout outs to some of the players who I like saw using effects. And it was like Gregory Jolivet, Matthias Loibner, you know, we Alexis Vacher, who we don't talk about.
That guy is amazing.
Dude, we don't talk about Alexis Vacher, and he's the proto Guillaume Desk. Like he is.
Yes.
And like when people want to be like, oh, Guillaume Desk is the new Valentin Clostier, I'm like, no, he's just like the next level. Really, actually, no, Alexis Vacher is an amazing player. He's just like another version of this like looping hurdy-gurdy player. And that's what I kind of wanted to be for a while, because I loved like looping and I loved like making my own things. Unfortunately, all these old videos of me online have been, I took them down, but like some of these actually predate like the reign of Guillaume. Like, you know, like Guillaume came out and I was like, oh crap, he does it way better than I do. Darn it. I wanted to be a big YouTube star. Darn it, Patty, you got it. Dang it.
Hey, no, you can pull it off.
Yeah.
Never mind. I was about to say something. I'm going to delete what I was just doing. Never mind.
Well, I mean, I could do it I've always wanted to do it in drag. That would be kind of fun.
That's what I was going to say.
I mean, like, hang on a second. And you can keep all this. Hang on.
Okay. I'll take mine out. And I'll play.
Just to give you like a little hint of what's going on, baby. Ooh, this is a wig. Ooh, I'm coming for you, players.
Yes.
But
we're getting back effects, yeah.
Alexis Vacher.
Oh, Alexi. Oh, look at this man.
Musical.
Dude, yeah, where he was just like, let's take this funny hammer.
That one is. And the saw, the saw.
Yeah, and the saw.
Oh, yo.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Even there was a couple videos of him, because another thing we have to really talk about is when I started playing, there were like no videos on YouTube of hurdy-gurdies. It was just like Gregory. Who's that Russian guy that everyone loved?
Andrei.
Yeah. But it was like it was before he got a Wolfgang.
Right.
It was
the old.
Yeah, it was basically like a Gallopin, you know, like, and he was getting like millions of views, being like, oh, it's like King Kong. People are like, yeah, hurdy-gurdy. And it was just like, and then the cool part about that was it was this incredible video by Matthias Loibner, where it's just this 8-minute solo of him like ripping and that has now disappeared into the bowels of the internet, which is kind of sad, because I mean that video, I remember just sitting there and being like, whoa, like, and it was just like recorded on like a crappy cell phone camera, but it was just like, it was like watching, like, it's still one of the greatest like performances. I mean, obviously when you see him live, it's incredible, but anyways, and he was using effects there as well. He was using like, he uses a like a laptop. So that's what like Alexi was doing. Oh. And and also Nicholas Sims. He uses kind of a similar system. So basically they're using like a laptop, and then it goes in with it's a Macmillan controller. Yes. So rather than, and this is actually kind of the cheaper way to do things, and maybe it's a little bit better, but then you're dealing with like the reliability of a computer. So he uses the controller with the effects and like April. I don't know what he used. No, Matthias Loibner uses like a program that he like builds his effects sometimes. Okay. Which is real cool. Yeah, it's like super cool. And where was I going with all this? So there's that video, the effects, but for me, I'll circle it back around to my like goal was also when I started playing, there wasn't a lot of like even using pedals, like a ton of pedals for guitar. It really wasn't that popular. So I kind of got in also when like pedals were becoming like a thing as well. So this is like another story of like pedals in general, like pedals, like there was, I just liked how, for me, it's like sonic Legos, you know, when you take pedals and you can just put them on the board and then you put this one next to it and then you make your signal path. And I also just like building pedal boards. Like that's another fact. I just love it. And then I love looking at it and going, ooh, this turned out nice. Like it. And so then you have everything like lined up. And I didn't see any hurdy-gurdy players really doing it like a full-blown, like all like pedal board, like all with pedals. Like for example, if you really want to study Guillaume Desk, you have to get into like fractal audio units, which is like, that's like the supreme, like that's basically you're buying like a computer that's an effect module and then you use like a controller for it, and which is sweet, but you're also basically paying like $3,000 for it. But everything's clean. But for me, I still wanted to just see if it was possible to make, in the beginning, just like one chain pedal board. And then my work in the past couple of years has been trying to figure out multi-chains. So like chains for the bourdon, chien, centrale, and depending on if it has tapping or sympathetic strings.
Tapping or sympathetic strings. I've heard that thrown around. I understand the sympathetic strings. What's the tapping bit we're talking about?
Well, there's a couple, because it's funny because I've tried pretty much most of the systems. So like, for example, when you see Scott Marshall with his artists, hurdy-gurdy, that's my old artist. And so basically there's a way of tapping where you bring the string up and you use a magnetic pickup. Okay. Then you just like, bam, you kind of like smack the string. And then it basically works like tapping a guitar.
Oh, so you're hitting the keys?
Just the keys.
Just the keys?
Just the keys, and then sounds like bim, 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 bim.
Yeah. And this was Gregory Jolivet who made this up. Like he was kind of like the dude. And there's this like there's like this album that my friend Benoit has that it was basically like all tapping, almost like this really cool album where it was like 2008 where he just got his big purple olive, because there's videos of him with the big green one that he had, that he was like doing tapping and stuff. And really Gregory Jolivet with effects and looping and all that stuff, he was really the one that I kind of was like, wow, this is so cool to do it with. Like, I can't, like, wow, like I want to do this too, you know, kind of thing. So it was really Greg, you know, just, and to meet him and now like be his like buddy or what buddy, just like know him, you know, and chat with him. It's really cool. But so
in order to do a lot of this stuff though, it requires that your Gurdy has pickups for each of the drone and the melody,
and also the type of pickups, because piezo's and magnetic pickups are very different, right? Brian?
Yeah. They're all. I mean, everything has its own flavor, you know. For me, like for example, when I hear like, if you listen to like Gilles Chabnat and some of the like, Stefan Durant, a lot of these players. Who else has a Syrah? All the Syrah hurdy-gurdies, they have that was kind of like this big piezo sound. And for me, like, I love it because it basically, so many players used it. It's so much, and it all basically sounded the same. It basically sounds like using like a Les Paul or a Telecaster. It has like that kind of like flavor. But it's basically with just those hurdy-gurdies. You can kind of get the flavor with Meuniers as well. So when you, because Greg has done so much like distortion and like overdriven effects, you can get kind of like a similar sound to his instrument. And then obviously it's your hands that changes everything. But he, you can get kind of like that Greg sound just by using the same system, which is like the electromagnetic system. And actually that's the most isolated system at the moment right now. That is the most isolated system. The electromagnetic, basically it's like if you know what a Fender Rhodes is, it's like a single pickup that goes up into it's like a single pickup for each string, or so the melody string has two pickups that are like, just, you know, when you look at a guitar and there's like the little magnets, it just has one of those magnets. Now, the smartest one actually at the moment, if you've really taken a look at Guillaume Desque's instrument, he uses like humbucker single things. So imagine a humbucker, which is already kind of awesome. It has tons of power behind it. And humbuckers are warmer than like a single pickup. So he uses like this, like a double humbucker when you look at his instruments, and that warms up his tone like so much. And that's why he has like a really nice tone when he plays. Just overall, I mean, obviously it's your hands that
of course
plays like everything. But, and then the other one that's a little bit annoying for me is the little baby microphone. So that's like real common on pretty much everything at this point. Like Wolfgang uses Duguay, Caesar, Roboyo, they all have like the microphone, like kind of like they're basically like a cell phone microphone. And it's great for like acoustic sound. It makes your Gurdy sound sweet. But when you start using effects,
feedback.
Yeah, it's like, see you later, alligator. It's like, I don't want to put an octavert on the Chanterelle and the Bourdon. I just want one or the other, you know? And so it's if you think of it like as a Venn diagram of like how each microphone has like a circle of sound around it. And then eventually all these circles, like they like interconnect. And so then you start hearing things and it's like, I really want more isolation. That's all I want. That's, I've had all the great Gurdies now, but at this point it's like, okay, basically as long as the Gurdy works like pretty well, what I really want at the end of all this is just like an isolated instrument, like so isolated.
So then in order to really do effects well, it's best to have like these pickups that you're talking about, not microphones, not necessarily the piezo.
The electromagnetics. Yeah, but
you know?
Yeah. However, there is one way that I figured out how to, I didn't figure it out. This is like audio engineering. There's a way to EQ pedals are like my new favorite things in the whole wide world. Oh. Because I use like on, like, I don't know if, I don't have a rig out, but I use with a 4-chain pedal board. I use an EQ for each of the strings. So let me backtrack a little bit and talk about the traditional like amplified Gurdy setup that I've seen. When you see guys that are like in the trad scene and they've been around for a long, they've just done a lot of gigs.
The dinosaurs.
Pardon?
The dinosaurs.
Not the dinosaurs, but just like, dude, some of these guys have been playing for forever. Like,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But even some of the guys that are like my age, they would use like a mixer, and then they would plug their hurdy-gurdy and they do a little bit of EQing, and then they would run the effects to the aux channel, and then it would come back through. And for me, you're still globally affecting things, but you're still using this giant mixer. But what I took from a mixer was like, okay, wait a minute. So each channel has like a EQ on it. And I was like, well, why don't we just take the EQ? Like, why don't I take like a pedal EQ and see how that would work? Because what you can do to kill some of this some of the mixing, like the bleed. You can like EQ, there's like, imagine there's a frequent, like the whole signal is here. What you can do, and let's say the signal's here, you have like, and you just want the melody that's right here. And then on the low end here, I think I'm doing it in the wrong way, but oh well. On the low end here, you have like the bourdons kind of like flapping around. You're like, I don't want to hear those. So what you do is you just kind of take, and if it's a graphic EQ, you just kind of cut the signal down. This is like a mixing technique. And then you just kind of like contour a little bit here. You can boost some of the frequencies. And what that does is it kind of kills some of the low end. And so you don't get as much of the bourdon. So then if you, for example, like for me, when I use an EQ pedal for the chien, I basically cut everything out of that frequency of the signal except for the chien. And so then that way, then I don't even have the sound of the strings. Like I just have the chien.
Just the chick, 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 chick.
Yeah, just like bam, because that's all I want. That's all I want.
Of course.
I don't, for me, like, I don't need this extra drone. Like, I don't need this, like, I just need the chien. And then, so yeah, I just kind of contour the signal to each spot, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's a little expensive.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it doesn't quite sound accessible to.
Well, if there are like, because I have a friend that uses like, and this is like, and also what I'm doing is kind of extreme. Like, I'll just say it right now. Like, there's a little bit of like this manic extreme exploration. Like, I got to figure this out thing, like to see if it works, you know, and half the time what I do is just to see if it works, you know, kind of thing. And I try to go to as far as I can before I'm like, all right, we're done here, you know, kind of thing. So it's that signal, that whole signal chain path thing is a little bit extreme. That is like, whew, like,
but that's also kind of why when I saw on your board, when you put on the Hurdy Gurdy Café, you have all those equalizers in there to kind of adjust. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then I found a smaller mixer that I can just put on the board. And then it just has the volumes, and the inputs, and then panning. So then,
also panning. So you went stereo, eh?
Yeah. I went stereo. So it's really cool because so many players, even some of the big names, they don't use stereo. They go in mono. So they have the whole signal just whack, like coming out. And I did that too, like forever. But stereo speak, I wanted to see if I could make it stereo without also having to like plug everything in. Like, also that's another thing is I didn't just want to show up to a gig and be like, okay, plug in this pedal to the mixer here. That one goes in here. It was just kind of like, bam, 1, 2, 3, 4, done. You know, that was also the philosophy behind these rigs that are so like, ugh, but I'm not playing or gigging. So basically it's just like me being like, okay, I'm going to go to the living room now. 1, 2, 3, 4, done. Let me play on the bed. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, done. Yeah. You know, so it's also just kind of like, not pointless, but if the time arrives.
Yes. The time will arrive one day.
Yeah.
So earlier, I'm not sure if we were talking about this before we started recording or if we were actually recording this. We talked about how you were a drummer, studied drums.
Yeah.
And that the reason you're able to do so well with the right hand and the buzzing and the different rhythms is because you do have a pattern or a methodology, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, it is 100% thanks to drums that I sort of evolved with the chien, because if you think about drummers, for example, and like the chien for me is basically like, a lot of times I describe the hurdy gurdy as like a viola with a snare drum or a hi-hat attached to it. Like basically, like we'll just say it like that. So I also was just like, okay, so I remember practicing like a little bit with snare and stuff, but if you see guys that like play snare for a living or they teach snare, I mean, they are literally always like practicing. They're just always just like, and it's because you have all these micro muscles that are these like micro muscles. I don't know. I've never looked at my hand before, but he's like these muscles that need to be like kind of trained all the time. And so I realized that I was like, okay, so that was one of the reasons. And also I had no problem just sitting there playing something rhythmically without any melody attached to it. So I could just practice chien not all day, but like for a while, and it wouldn't bother me. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is annoying. And also, but there's also this kind of like thing where I was like, I need to learn chien right now kind of thing. Like there's also this urgency to learn that. Not so much tunes. I'm still pretty bad at playing tunes. But
so the muscle memory was from playing drums, you having that already in there, to the ability to kind of move your hands.
The idea. Yeah, I kind of started off because you're doing your hi-hat here, you have your snare drum here, and so there's a little bit of freedom. But for me, like when I play like for example piano, like when I play, I'm like, this is rough. Like I think piano's way harder than drums. Drums is just like hit here, and then like do this, kind of thing. I mean, obviously it's, but so,
not quite.
Yeah. I just play like this, guys.
Just do this.
That's just what you do with drums. That's all. No, but there was also like an element as a player, just like with playing drums, and then also because I was a singer like for my whole life, like all the time in musicals, high school, college, I studied singing. So I'll talk about rhythm first. So then for me, I had no shame in just like sitting there practicing chien like all the time, or just like and finding like find the joy in practicing chien. Like it's just like, but really that's what it is. You have to like reach a point. And I was talking to my friend Benoit Michaud, who's a mega player, who's like in my town. He kind of did something I did. He had like a map of the world apparently. And while he was practicing chien, he would just like look at it and memorize all the capitals of the world.
Oh.
So, but then what I would do, like for me, I was just like, crap, I need to learn how to do coup de six here. And it's going to take a while because it just takes time. Like it just takes time. There's no magical, there's like ways to unlock things and ways to get you into like a direction. But literally it just takes like hours of practice and like sitting there, humbling yourself and being like, okay, we're just gonna have to figure this out. Like, and I would put on like for me, it was like Netflix series. So I remember learning coup de six in particular. I would sit down and watch. It was the American Horror Story. It was like the clown season. So like these people are like endlessly slaughtering themselves, and I'm like, bup, 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 bup. I was like, oh, he got all of that one, bup, bup, bup. So it's just like, I would just sit there, and sometimes I need to go back and learn things with a metronome for sure, because right now I'm a little wonky. But even like coup de cat, there was just like, it was just metronome and really, and just as a drummer, I already knew like playing, like I wasn't afraid to play with the metronome as a drummer. And I also found kind of the joy in playing with a metronome, if that's possible. Kind of is.
Yeah. But what you're talking about with, watching something or looking at the map, that makes a little bit of sense to me, because when I actually can do something with my right hand and I'm playing the melody, I'm not paying any attention to my right hand. It's just doing what it needs to be doing while I'm doing the melodies. So it seems like an interesting way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, and go ahead. Oh.
No, that's all.
No.
Oh, but it's also just like, it's also there's a period where you just have to like, it sounds crazy, but you just have to build the muscle. Mm-hmm. Like
No, that doesn't sound crazy at all. When I first started getting lessons with Sergio and Steve and Tyler, they're like, yeah, just do it like this. And I'm like, like I can't, I'm like, why can't I get the 4? It's like my arm doesn't know how to just push there.
Right.
And after a while, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4,
exactly.
Like getting it slowly. Then it's like my hand just kind of knew what to do. It makes perfect sense.
I think it's same thing. For me, when I practice chien alone, I don't know about this, but I'm curious about your opinion, Ryan, because for me it's like meditation. I don't know. I get like, going, and I can find myself 1 hour and a half like doing the same, and I don't know. Is this a new special technique for meditation, Ryan, or what?
It very well could be, but I the thing that has helped me most, not what you're talking about, but it was when we talked with a Nigel, or was it when we talked to Nigel? Something Nigel said. He was talking about how he was really angry and was trying to figure out how to do this pattern, and so he sat down and he just he said, "I'm not stopping until I get it." He said he channeled his anger, and I thought to myself, yeah, I'm going to try that. So I sat down and I couldn't get it, and I was getting angry at myself, but the angrier I got, the better I got at it. Yeah. So, I guess it just takes all different ways.
Yeah, there's a variety. Yeah, the meditation and all that. Yeah, and also it's, I totally agree. I mean, whatever way you arrive at basically practicing chien by itself is like the best, whatever way. There's so many ways.
Well, so this is a question for both of you, because both of you are, extremely good at what you do. And I still consider myself definitely in the learning camp. That I understand what you're saying, but is there anything in particular to avoid? So you don't get into maybe a bad pattern, anything in particular, Sergio or Brian, do you think about that?
Yeah.
Tension?
Yeah.
Tension is, for me, a big red line. If you have
just
tension,
try to relax.
You're doing something wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least for me. What do you think, Brian?
Well, that's why I'm a little hesitant on this one, because my technique is still kind of under fire a little bit. And where I'm not really sure where, I still have to kind of figure out what the heck is going on with my body, because that's why I'm a little hesitant about teaching it as well, because I'm like, I just need to make sure I don't blow up something first, because my playing is a little bit of tension as well, but there is some tension for sure. Yeah. And but one of the things that I try to go back on for me is sometimes if it's tense in the beginning, there's a period where it'll loosen up as well. It'll just sort of magically arrive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happens, but it happened with drums. It happened so I kind of wait for this period of looseness. But you're totally right, Sergio. Tension is with any instrument and anything you got to stay away from tension.
At least being conscious that the tension has to disappear. I mean, the little bit of tension at the beginning is, of course, normal, but at least being conscious that, okay, this thing is maybe not good. And also, I think another common mistake for beginners is trying to do big moves when doing the coups.
Yeah.
And for me, the coup, my 3 golden rules for the coup are very staccato, very piano, and no tension.
Yeah. And I... Right, 100%. And that's, the more, what was I going to say? For me, when I learned, coup de cat and all that stuff, and even coup de six, I would actually just make sure that the tirant was super duper tight.
Totally.
And there is some sort of magical things that happens, even if you practice it slowly, but you just try to practice the movement slowly. Just be pump, pink, kung, and then eventually you get better and practice it with a metronome. It works. It worked for me at least.
So don't make it so exaggerated, because I was actually trying to record myself to see how bad I was doing or how good I was doing, and I noticed that as I'm going around, this hand, this finger, it flares out. It's one, and then it's this big thing that I do, and I said, quit doing that.
Well, yeah, I don't. For me, that's where I'm a little bit because there are different schools of chien technique,
Okay.
And so
this is good technique.
You don't move your hand, right, Brian? It's fantastic. I see you this, fingers. For me, it's fantastic. I love it.
Oh, thanks. Well, we'll see how well my body likes it, but it's more about here. And kind of moving it around here. And it's there's so many different techniques of just opening your hand a little bit and knocking. And I'm trying to get back into moving my fingers a little bit more, because when you get to certain speeds, yes, you can move your hand lightning fast. Look at Valentin Clostier. His hand is wide open and he's but like, yeah. He's 70. He's going to be 74 years old, and he still has one of the fastest kuduits I've ever seen anyone play. Jeez. But anyways, so a lot, but it also plays into like what I'm trying to do with this xiang as well. Like that's, if I can just interject why I'm doing what I'm doing. Also, it's because I am more interested now in volume control with the xiang. So what that means is like I'm more like when you listen. For me, I was a big drummer, so I was listening to like Keith Carlock, Jojo Mayer, some of these drummers, and like you listen to like hi-hat technique. They're not just like, and I understand like it, and it breaks my heart sometimes when other hurdy-gurdy players are like, you don't need the high coup counts to do that. It's not musical. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Let's talk about that, because I think it can be, but you have to consider the execution and you have to consider the balance of your music. Like look at, for example, metal music. I love listening to metal right now. But it's more or less the relationship between the guitar and the drums, because you listen, sometimes if the drums are going nuts, the guitars back up a little bit and they're just playing like lines. And so for me, a lot of times I'm not trying to like blast people with this xiang, but I would like it to speak a little bit more. And I'd like there to be a little bit more like, you know, when you listen to like hi-hat technique and stuff, these guys are really doing stuff musically. They're not just like ba, 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 ba. That's great. If you're in the pocket, grooving, sweet. But there's guys that are doing all kinds of crazy stuff with the xiang oh, come on now. Hi-hats. Sorry.
Hi-hat.
Yeah, I'm like Chin, Trompette. Oh, what other names? But they're doing a bunch of stuff. But the thing is, you have to find the balance where it's not impeding, you know. And that's also where I'm always trying to pay attention to that and trying to not be just like musical
and dynamic. Eh?
That's exactly it. That's 100% it. And also
like Neil Peart.
Yeah, and with even like learning kuduit, I mean, maybe if you can get as high up to kuduit, you begin to realize how humongous kudukat is. Like, and even from really kuduit to kudukat, you're just like, holy cow, kudukat is huge. It's like,
yes, but totally.
Yeah. And then once you start getting into like, because there's a period where I was up to like 15, and that was like Brian like practicing like this, and also, but I also use a 10 centimeter crank. That changes a lot. That changes.
Yes.
So
that's bigger than the standard, right?
Oh heck yeah! You're looking at about 4 centimeters more.
Yeah.
Or like, because I was using an 8. And then I went up to a 10 because 9 was a bit weird, but 10 was, for me, it was really cool because there's also an element where I feel like I'm kind of playing drums again, which is kind of weird. Like there's an element, but what's nice is it gives me a little bit more room to control what I want to do as well. It's not, I always have to clarify that I'm not trying to like, you know, blast people's faces off with xiang. It's like, but we have this really, like for me, if you want to say what's my favorite part of the hurdy-gurdy, it's like it's the xiang. It's just like there's this part on this instrument that has its own rhythmic voice that still generally speaking is like it's underused at this point, especially now with all the kids coming up and they're in these like incredible bands and blah 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 doing all these tours, but it's like, hey, you know, you got that xiang on that hurdy-gurdy there, you know, when are you gonna, so you got those like millions of views there, but when are you gonna learn that kudukat, huh? When are we gonna learn that, huh? When are we gonna do a little boom boom boom, you know, bing, 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 you know? You know, it's like so for me, I'm always just a little bit like, I'm like, oh darn it, you know. So I as a response to kind of react to this like extreme like no xiang at the moment in the kind of like mainstream world, there's this period where I was like, okay, let's kind of ground myself on what I want to do here at this point. And it's really trying to find like a clean xiang, but also xiang that has like a little bit of some sort of voice to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the tastefulness of it doesn't just apply to being able to do high high numbers. Like, for example, if I'm playing an Irish jig and I'm just doing 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, it's like, come on, like let's make it a little more. Yeah, let's make it a little more interesting.
This is my obsession now, like controlling the accents and being able to play very, very, very quiet and then very loud and do because. For me, the dynamics of the instrument are here on the right hand, because the melody is like
praise be, praise be. Tell me more, Sergio. You know, totally. I mean, it's true. Yes, it's true. It's 100%. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sergio, but you're right.
No, it was that.
You're on this path here of like, because and also. To go on top of that, even though there are players who maybe like these mega players, like look at all the mega trad French players. Look at Annelise Foy, Thierry Noir, Patrick Buffard, Gilles Chabnat. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If you listen to them, there's also intention behind their chien. What that means is they actually have a very clear voice. They have a certain character to their what hand is this? Left hand. But then they also have like a character to their right hand. There is a specific, you put those two players together, you'd be like, that's Annelise Foy and that's Thierry Noir, based on their chien technique. Mm-hmm. So then that's another thing is finding your voice with the chien. Just because you can blast us it's my next like challenge, even I'm working on it, is to find like your voice. How do you transmit your sound through the chien?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally.
Tricky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let us know when you find out.
I'll let you know.
Well, we're coming close to the end of our time together. And I have some other things here we could talk about, but I'm afraid that would take another 3 hours. So we might have to
do a 3-part session.
we might have to schedule a follow-up to this. But before we listen to that final track, Sergio, do you have any final questions for Brian?
Not really. It was very nice.
Oh, cool. I had a blast, but I talked the whole time.
Well, that was why you're here.
Yeah. Let's listen to B-Rat talk.
Yeah. Good. Well, this final track that we're going to listen to, this is a track of you. And this is from, it's a duo, correct? Seaphone?
Yeah, it's my Seaphone is the duo of my wife and I, Armel Doucet. And we, just to give you like a I'll try to sum this up. When we're one of these classy new age people that met online via this really cool couples site called Facebook. So there was a period when we started talking because I had finished up this Goofy album in 2016 and I was looking for other ears to listen to it. And long story short, I showed it to her. We started talking and then we started talking more and then we started sharing music together. And then we started making music like via distance, blah, 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 blah. And then we got married. That's like a long story short.
Nice.
I'm trying to like save some time here.
Okay.
There's about 6 months of things that happened that were like, us meeting and all this stuff. And it was really quite magical. It's one of those fairy tale stories, really. So then we decided last year why don't we take these tunes that we kind of like wrote together and why don't we try to do something with them? Because they existed and then we tried to make them live and they were just kind of like our tunes that we wrote for like each other and putting cute little things in it. And so then we made like a live set and we performed it. And the name of this band is based on a little slight error of translation. Because my favorite color on an instrument is seafoam green.
Okay.
But what happened is Armel being French and being as English as her second language, she thought I was saying seaphone. So and she goes, wait a minute, it's seafoam? And I was like, yeah, I've been saying it like the whole time as seafoam green. And she goes, oh, I thought it was seaphone. And I was like, and this was like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. And I was like,
if you're only saying it over electronic media, maybe
but no, just even in person, even in real life, like when I started living in France and all that stuff, and acquiring all these instruments that are like Seaphone. My Gurdy, that's kind of like Seaphone-ish. And so then we thought of a name, and Seaphone was kind of a cool name because Seaphone is a cool name because basically our music was created in distance, you know, so it's like the Seaphone, like a phone line, whatever. However, this song wasn't created in distance. This song was created when we just wrote this song, and this was more of like Ahmel's tune. But I think what's nice is this tune kind of represents our sound globally as a duo. Unfortunately, there's no chien in this song, so because I'm darn it. Well, and also there's I was like, darn it, crap. But
we know you can do it. We know you can.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
But it's nice because you get to hear me sing, you get to hear Ahmel sing, you get to hear synthesizers, you get to hear Ahmel play accordion. There's some like Gurdy stuff. I'm using the Wolfgang viola in this tune. Not so much effects, but it's kind of like this borderline new agey pop sound that we're kind of going for with this group. And so I just thought I'd share that just to kind of show you like this is kind of the realm that I'm sort of in as well.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So this is the title of your duo is Seaphone, and the title of the track is Little Boy.
Yeah.
Wonderful, and thank you for being here, Brian. It was really a pleasure. I've been looking forward to it for a while.
My pleasure.
It was very fun.
Well,
Yes.
wow, this was a blast.
And good to see you too again, Sergio.
Of course.
All right, so let's have a listen. This is, again, Little Boy by Seaphone.
wanted to be surrounded by the light inside. So far he wanted to feel a stone to guide him home where he belongs, but he was too small, trapped in a cloud that he couldn't get out. The only thing he could do was close his eyes and say, away. Now it's time for you to show your eyes. Little boy, you wanted to be surrounded by the light inside. So far you wanted to feel a stone to guide him home where he belongs, but he was too small, trapped in a car that he couldn't get out. The only thing he could do was close his eyes and say,
Done. All right.
Yay!
Great.
Am I a rockstar? No. Come on.
No, you seem to be. I mean,
Yeah, you
like,
do.
but
All
it's
right.
fine. I mean, like you do, but I mean, you put in the time, dude. So that's all that matters. I mean, shit. Put in the time, as they
Put
say.
in the time.
Of course.